In 1961, a psychologist proved that ordinary people will torture innocent strangers, not because they're evil, but because someone in a lab coat told them to. 65% of them went all the way to the maximum voltage. This is the story of the Milgram Experiment. It all started with a simple, terrifying question from psychologist Stanley Milgram. Would you hurt an innocent person if an authority figure commanded you to do it? To find out, he recruited a cross-section of society: teachers, engineers, salespeople. They were told they were participating in a study on memory and learning. Each volunteer was assigned the role of teacher. In another room, out of sight, sat the learner. The teacher's job was simple: ask the learner a series of questions. For every wrong answer, they had to press a button. That button, they were told, delivered a painful electric shock, and with each mistake, the voltage would increase. Imagine sitting in front of the machine they used, 30 switches in a neat, intimidating row. It started at a mild 15 volts, but climbed methodically all the way to 450 volts. The switches had labels like strong shock and danger, severe shock. The very last switch was marked only with an ominous XXX. You can imagine the participants' nervousness, but a man in a white lab coat was there, calm and reassuring. While the shocks may be painful, they will cause no permanent tissue damage. Then the experiment began. At 75 volts, a grunt of pain comes through the speaker. At 120 volts, a clear shout that the shocks hurt. At 150 volts, the learner's voice is panicked. "Let me out. I refuse to go on. My heart is bothering me." The teacher hesitates, but the experiment continues. By 300 volts, the sound from the other room is just a scream of agony. The learner pounds on the wall, then refuses to answer any more questions. And after 330 volts, there is only silence. The participants, now sweating and distressed, turn to the man in the lab coat. They ask if they should stop. The man's response is always calm, always authoritative. He has 4 simple prods. First, please continue. If they hesitate again, the experiment requires that you continue. Then, it is absolutely essential that you continue. And finally, the last line: you have no other choice, you must go on. No shouting, no threats, just words. And for most people, those words were enough. But here is the crucial twist, the detail the participants never knew.
There were no shocks. The man in the other room was an actor. The screams were all coming from a pre-recorded tape. The entire setup was a carefully constructed illusion. But for the person sitting at that control panel, the pain they believed they were inflicting, the silence they heard, all of it was devastatingly real. So, presented with this moral crisis, how many people walked out? The results are the most chilling part of the story. Every single participant, 100%, continued to deliver shocks up to 300 volts, the point of agonizing screams. And 65% of them, 2 out of every 3, went all the way. They flipped the final switch, 450 volts, XXX. They kept pressing the button even into the deafening silence from the other room. What explains this? Psychologists call it authority bias. When a legitimate authority figure gives a command, our brains can shift responsibility. We stop seeing ourselves as the ones acting and instead see ourselves as an instrument for someone else's will. We stop thinking for ourselves. We just obey. These weren't sadistic people. Recordings show them trembling, arguing, and pleading. But in the end, the presence of that lab coat, that calm voice of authority, was more powerful than their own conscience. And this isn't just a lab curiosity. This experiment offers a dark explanation for some of history's greatest tragedies. It helps us understand how soldiers can follow horrific orders, how employees can cover up corporate crimes, and how entire populations can become complicit in genocide. Milgram's subjects showed us that the perpetrators aren't always monsters. Often they're just ordinary people being obedient. The ultimate lesson from Milgram's shockbox is a warning to question authority, to remember that a uniform, a title, or a degree does not grant moral infallibility. Your own conscience is the final checkpoint, and blind obedience, as this experiment proved, is one of the most dangerous forces in human nature. So it leaves us with one last uncomfortable question. Would you have stopped? It's easy to say yes, but Milgram's data suggests that 2 out of 3 of us wouldn't have. That under the right pressure, you might have gone all the way too. Subscribe to explore more psychology experiments that reveal the truth about who we really are.